Supervisors meeting, and I believe we're on item number 14. You can hold on just a moment. Stay tuned for item number 14. Okay, folks, so the next item on the agenda is item number 14, discussion and possible approval of ordinance number 7-2018, the adoption of sewer use fees.
Yes, this is the co-adoption of the previously adopted ordinance to increase the residential sewer rates to 105 and other commercial rates. These are for the township also meters rates for our bulk users, and the ordinance amends those uses for the first 200,000 gallons, the second 400,000 gallons, the next 200,000 gallons, and over 800,000 gallons of usage. And it raises those rates commensurate with what we're raising the other commercial establishments and the residential rates.
So instead of a flat rate
Yes.
for the residents, it's based on a usage rate.
Correct. Based on a flow meter at the establishment for the big industrial bulk users, which we only have.
Make a motion to adopt this ordinance.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. Comment, public comment, Dr. White?
Is this for the flat commercials? Is it going to still be the 80 to 120?
No, this is strictly for the users that are bulk users, very large users of water that are metered. So it's $7, for example, $7.04 per 1,000 gallons for the first 200,000 gallons. If there's an industrial use that uses a ton of water, each of those rates is called out inside this ordinance.
Okay, so the flat rate commercials are still going to be the 120?
That was adopted at our previous sewer adoption meeting. I can't, when did we do that? September? October. We did that October. This is just this section 66-24.
Okay.
We updated 66-23 previously, which included all commercial other than these huge bulk users.
Okay, just, so it will be 120?
I think it's 129.
129?
I think it's 129. I'll email you.
Okay.
I have to check.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Ford?
Would you just confirm, was this revenue factored into the total revenues to be collected from the increase in sewer rates?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Based on my previous opposition, I'll vote no. We'll move on. Next item on the agenda is item number 15, discussion and possible approval of ordinance number 8-2018 pertaining to the regulation of fireworks. Mr. Sanders, can I hand that over to you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because this ordinance proposes an amendment to the zoning ordinance, it is required to be enacted pursuant to and following a public hearing. It has been advertised, duly advertised for a public hearing this evening, so I would request that you request from the board a motion to open a public hearing on this ordinance.
We'll do so. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Do I have a motion to do that?
I did.
Mr. Purnell.
Second.
Second from Ms. Lasota. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now that the hearing is open, we are certainly free to discuss the proposed ordinance. The ordinance defines certain terms. Chief amongst them are consumer fireworks The ordinance is being enacted pursuant to recent state law revisions in governing the sale and use of fireworks in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. All municipalities are updating generally both standalone ordinances and their zoning ordinances to provide for what is allowed to occur by state law. This particular ordinance allows the sale of fireworks in the multi-purpose district by conditional use, so that anybody who wants to establish a retail outlet for the sale of fireworks could only do so without obtaining a use variance in the multi-purpose district, and then must come before this board for conditional use approval to determine whether the applicant meets all of the specific requirements set forth in the ordinance for things like the exact location and what the fireworks sales, retail sales can be close to. It's got to be set back 1,500 feet from certain uses and certain other uses. It also deals with the temporary sale of fireworks. Generally, you see the seasonal kiosks pop up, and this ordinance now governs where and to what extent that can occur. So again, this ordinance is somewhat of a housekeeping ordinance to bring the township zoning ordinance up to date with state law. Comments from the board, questions, and then we should open it up to public comment. And once that's done, motion to close the hearing, and then you can vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. Do we have any comments or questions from the Board of Supervisors of this new revised ordinance?
I personally very much encourage it. As a fireman, absolutely essential.
I will turn it over to the audience. Does the audience have any questions about this new ordinance? Ms. Richards.
Robert Brotchett, West Goshen Township. I'm not sure whether I understand fully exactly what this ordinance says, but I thought there was something there about use of firearms. Is that correct?
Fireworks.
Or fireworks?
This has nothing to do with firearms.
I'm sorry, fireworks.
Yes.
Because over the years, now where I live, houses are like on quarter-acre lots. And I've experienced where people down the street have shot off works and landed on the roof. And that's my concern about this whole thing, is that people, they'll be drinking over the holidays and they start shooting this stuff off. If it lands on your roof and it catches on fire, who's responsible for that? If the township allows this to happen.
Yeah.
If you're approving usage.
Well,
Not true.
this ordinance governs the sale of fireworks. So that if somebody wants to establish a place of business that sells, the business is selling fireworks, that they have to follow the requirements of this ordinance. There is a companion ordinance to this ordinance that is, are we still reviewing it, or did it, the standalone fireworks
We're
ordinance?
still reviewing it because we're not sure how it interacts with the state law. Because we're not
Okay.
right now sure if the township, Mr. Webb, can supersede. We normally cannot supersede state law. And the state law is very clear. We actually have a primer on our website about the state law. As of today, I'm not so sure that we can put in a law that's more stringent than what the state allows. And the state's requirements are pretty strict.
They're pretty tight.
And if someone violates that, we call our police. And they
Well,
will-
a number of times I was going to call the police because it was getting, I mean, especially when it goes in like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, dogs are going crazy and everything else.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
don't we have anything to control it?
Well, this ordinance doesn't address that. This addresses the sale. The use, other municipalities have adopted or enacted ordinances controlling the use, banning it from township-owned property, and establishing regulations about controlling it. That is in the works, but is not yet being considered.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, having said that, we do have a motion, we do have a second. So
Well, let's close the hearing. Let's move to close the hearing first, and then
all right.
that's all right.
Motion to close the hearing.
I'll move to close.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lasoda. Thank you, Mr. Purnell. So we'll close the meeting. Now, can we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
I so moved.
I'll second. Mr. Prendergast.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Number 16, discussion and possible approval of ordinance number 9-2018, approval of the Westchester Borough Fire Services Agreement. So folks have heard about this a couple of times. Now, the increased amount, and Mr. Lalonde will fill you in on some of the details about this agreement.
We'll do it together. I will start by saying that the reason why we need an ordinance here is because the township is entering into an intergovernmental agreement with other municipalities. And by law, the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act requires that each participating municipality in a joint agreement approve that agreement by ordinance. So it's a relatively short ordinance that just says that the proposed agreement with these other townships and significantly the borough, for the borough to continue to provide fire protection services to a large portion of the township is approved. So the nuts and bolts of this are in the agreement, but the ordinance is just to approve the agreement.
Thank you very much. Understood that. Do we have a motion?
I will make that motion.
Mr. Purnell? do we
I'll
have a
second.
A second from Ms. Duntebeck. At this point, I'll turn it over to the audience if you have any questions about this ordinance. Yeah, it seems so. So we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Number 17 is a discussion of ordinance number 10-2018, amending the township sign ordinance.
Mr. Purnell, and Mr. Lalonde, are you tabling that?
It's been previously looked at by the planning commission, to my knowledge. This is the reason we put it off for approval. This is just a discussion tonight, it's not a bill. This is an amendment due to the political signs issue. We came up with another issue through phone calls and complaints from residents that we did not address, and that's illumination of signs on private and residential property. So this new version has that restriction, I would say, Mr. Webb, also built into that. So we would have to go through the approval process once more. I think we can do it December. Does this require?
No, this
This is strictly a non-zoning.
This is a non-zoning. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. This is a zoning amendment. This is a zoning. This is sign ordinance zoning amendment. My apologies.
So due to today's late date of the 26th, we couldn't look at this till January at this point with advertising, planning commission, just pending planning commission. So we're just looking for approval to move on with the process to get it advertised for January at this point.
That's with Mr. Colin Greco's amendment, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, we're going to update it with the Greystone updates as well, because the sign ordinance is obviously the sign ordinance.
Okay. Do we have any questions from any of the Board of Supervisors regarding this discussion involving the new ordinance?
We need a motion to authorize him to proceed.
Yes, correct.
And I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. And a second from Mr. Macomb. Any comment from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is item number 18, discussion and possible approval of the 2019 fuel bids.
Yes, on an annual basis, we go out for bid for fuel for the various township locations. We go out for 4 different items due to the different uses of our vehicles and pump stations, generators, etc. The 4 different bids that we solicit every year are unleaded gasoline for the fuel island, BioClear ultra-low sulfur diesel for the fuel island, that's for our trucks due to the federal standards, low sulfur heating oil for the sewer plant, pretty much. Dave, Mike, is that pretty much for the sewer plant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then dyed ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel for our generator. We received 1 bid from Scheller Oil Company for the low sulfur heating oil. That is the recommended award of $2.02, and it's rack price, so this isn't a set price for the year. We've been allowed to do that. $2.27.4. Riley and Sons bid on all 4, but we're the low bid on the unleaded gasoline at $1.75. The BioClear ultra low sulfur diesel at 2.29 cents, and the dyed ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel for the generator at 2.51 cents per gallon. So we're recommending approval after staff review.
We'll make the motion to approve those.
Have a motion from Mr. Purnell, do we have a second? A second from Mr. Beacom. Turn it over to the floor. Ms. Ford.
I guess I'm just wondering, this is an awful lot of fuel, over 100,000 gallons, but just 40,000 gallons of unleaded gasoline. And I just find it hard to believe that only one company bid on
Only
it.
one company bid. We usually have three. I got a call from Mauger and Sons, who usually bid. The day the bids were due, that was the snowstorm. They fell off the radar. We usually only have three bidders because our requirements for delivering this fuel are so stringent. 2-hour delivery.
2-hour delivery.
2-hour delivery. Even during a snowstorm, they have to be here to fill us up. So it's only local companies who bid. We don't get the big delivery companies because they can't meet our needs for emergency service.
So do we put it out on the market though, where the big companies that might be able to offer? I'm just surprised that we don't get a...
We don't get any interest from the big companies because they can't meet our standards for delivery.
Does this go on Unibid or anything like that?
We advertise for the law.
Okay, so we only had one company bid on 3 of the 4. So only,
Correct. Brown
Yeah.
and Sons bid on all 4.
and that was essentially the only bidder for 3. That's all I'm just pointing out. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay. I believe we already have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, item number 19, discussion and possible approval of the 2018 surplus police vehicle bids.
And we received 2 bidders on we had a 2008 Crown Victoria Police Interceptor and a 2010 Crown Victoria Police Interceptor. The cars are of course sold as is in very poor condition. We received 1 bid for the 2008 from Emergency Remarketing in Willoughby, Ohio for $369.06, and 2 bids on the 2010 Crown Victoria, the high bid being Chicago Motors in Chicago, Illinois for $1,507.
Okay, do we have a motion for those bids?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Purnell.
I'd like to comment, if I could, on the emergency marketing bid for the 2008 Crown Vic. They bid $369.06. I would suggest that we reject that bid particularly. I feel that the scrap yard value of $400 to $500 would exceed that. And I'd suggest that we redo that or reject that specific vehicle. I'd defer to the chief and to Casey.
I defer to our Public Works Department. They use scrap every day. So,
Okay.
Mr. Woodward, Mr. Bertolami, what would you suggest?
I don't know what the current scrap, we haven't run scrap in a while. Historically, if we don't bid those cars, we've actually donated them to the fire company to be cut up for training.
That, at $369, that would be a better use in my mind.
We've spent about $700 in advertising. We have to advertise the bids, so we're already out money. So anything we don't get back, we're not getting back. So I just wanted to caution that as well.
Well, the 2010 Crown Vic, I would suggest we go ahead with, but
Well, I'm not. If you don't approve this bid, we're not going to rebid if we get a lower price. We will then scrap it. I'm not going to spend more money to rebid it because it's not
okay,
worth it.
well
I mean, it's
then we should make it as a donation to the fire company.
Well, we already donated several vehicles. I'm not sure if they'd even want it.
We didn't, this one went out to bid, we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't offer it yet. So.
What do they do with that?
The fire training school would, I'm sure, accept it.
That's your prerogative.
What exactly do they use them for? Maybe
Draws a line.
They use them for extraction practice, so that they treat it as though somebody had an accident and how to extract an accident victim.
Can we contact the fire school and see if they're in need of such a thing? Before
We can, I mean, I guess you could, Mr. Sanders, you could make a bid contingent, or can you? I know. Or we table this until next month. I need to get rid of it, at least from the 2010. It's sitting there,
You can-
just going almost flat.
You can make separate motions.
Yeah, you want to do that?
You can certainly split this because there's two different
Okay, then
vehicles.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid for the Crown Vic 2010 year
Good.
from Emergency Remarketing.
There was a bid on from Chicago Motors of $1,507.
Or, I'm sorry, yes, for the higher,
Yeah,
which is Chicago Motors. I apologize.
you amend your motion?
Yeah,
Table the-
I'll remake my motion to only accept the Chicago Motors 2010 bid, bid, and table or defer the emergency marketing 2009.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, second. Any public comment? Perhaps in the interim, we could just reach out to see if there is a.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And if we
Get on that.
The scrap value, $150 to 200 at the most. I've donated several vehicles or I've sold several vehicles like that. $150 to $200 scrap value at the most.
Okay.
Where did you do them?
All those in favor of this motion? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we'll come back to the 2008 Crown Vic
Yep.
next month. Number 20, discussion and possible approval of the 2018 Senior Citizens Trash Rebate Program.
Yeah, this is our annual trash rebate. We obviously don't make the names public for obvious reasons, but you have the letter plus the roster. This is an annual program that the township has done for many years to rebate 80% of those super low-income seniors that qualify for the program.
Any questions or discussion from the board members on this? Any questions from the audience about this program? I think most people know about this program. It's for.
I'm just wondering if we can extend this program to anyone below the poverty level, not just.
It's not the poverty line, it's the state homestead exemption level. It's an incredibly low income, it's like $9,000 a year. So it's not poverty, it's way below poverty.
Well, I noticed in the budget for next year as well, there's a line item for rebate for the sewer rates as well.
Correct.
And it's specific to seniors.
It's mimicking this exactly,
Right.
except obviously, we're still double checking the roster. We still have 300 to 400 households in the township that don't have public sewer, so they obviously they wouldn't qualify for a sewer rebate if they don't pay. So it's going to be this number or lower. But we put this number in the budget because we're still doing research on it.
I was just surprised to learn that our poverty level in West Goshen Township is actually higher than the poverty level for the entire county. And so with the increased sewer rates and such, that maybe more focus or additional focus needs to be on.
The poverty level, though, doesn't apply to the exclusions or the requirements of the state that under the Constitution that the tax laws have to be applied equally. And because the poverty level varies, it can't be used on a state basis, under the state law. That's my understanding of it. I'll defer to Dave.
I'm all for that, Margie, and I look forward to developing something to give some type of relief to those most in need for the increase. So it's something that we did budget for going forward, and looking forward to enacting something similar with the sewer rate increase.
Thank you.
Anyhow, we need a motion to approve it.
We do, we need a motion to approve
Motion to approve.
the Senior Citizens Trash Rebate Program. I think I have a motion for Ms. Wasota. Right. Second by Mr. Purnell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Finally, folks, we have the public comment number 21.
Wait, two others. No,
Yeah, we have the sludge hauling and adaptive signal.
Oh, yes. Give me these two policy codes. This evening, we have two items that have been added on that need to be addressed. So we'll go to item number 21 will now be, shall we start with resolution 21 of 2018, Mr. Lewis?
Let's do the sludge hauling first if we can.
All right, let's do the sludge. 21 will be the Goshen Township 2019 sludge and waste hauling bid.
Yes, the sewer department has put out, the wastewater department, excuse me, has put out, as we do every year, the sludge and waste hauling. They dry the sludge, it's dried, and then have it hauled away. Every year we put out a bid for two 25-yard dumpsters. And we received two bids, one from Charles Blazinski in Honeybrook and one from JP Mascaro in Audubon. We're recommending Charles Blazinski at $262 a load versus JP Mascaro at $402.95 per load.
Quite a disparity.
Quite a disparity. They're coming from a good distance from Audubon. Yeah.
Do you have experience in working with either of these two companies historically?
Yeah, JP Mascaro used to be the township's hauler for 3 years, and we weren't pleased with their level of service.
Okay, I
And
asked that
Blazinski
question
doesn't-
because of the, yeah, that's what I recognized. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a bid $262 below as compared to $462.95. So just two bids that we received.
I'll make a motion we accept the Blazinski bid.
We have a motion.
I
from Mr.
second that.
Canal. Second, Any public comment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll be moving to item number 22, which seems to be the resolution number 21, 2018, hand it over to Mr. Lewis.
This was a late request from PennDOT, and Mr. Craig, feel free to throw in. PennDOT is doing an improvement project for the Route 202 and Matlack Street signalized intersection to install adaptive signals. Is that correct?
Correct. It's actually a number of intersections. I believe there are 6 of them, but the only one in West Goshen Township is Matlack and 202.
It appears to be going south all the way to Britton's Bridge Road to increase traffic efficiency on 202. This is strictly a PennDOT project, but since we own the signal, they request that we take a look at the equipment and have the board approve the equipment going in. And Mr. Craig has reviewed the equipment. Do you have any comments on?
The equipment's fine. It's consistent with the other adaptive systems that we have. The only thing that the board needs to understand is there are additional costs with adaptive systems. So PennDOT has a 5-year warranty and service on this adaptive system, and after that, it'll be up to us, and the estimated annual cost is $750 a year for the intersection. However, it should provide a slight improvement in level of service. It's not going to be a dramatic improvement. There should be a slight improvement in level of service, and that intersection, I think it's worth it.
How's it going to be affected by the Agway project?
It won't.
Is that what Agway was proposing?
No, this is separate.
Okay.
The Agway proposal was some lane improvements, and they'll work with the adaptive system. That's not counted.
So what kind of improvements will we see with this adaptive system?
The system will work like Boot 202 and Route 3 and 5 Points Road. It will monitor the traffic cues, the delays, and adapt through a computer algorithm to try to equalize the delays and maximize the amount of traffic through the intersection. It will give priority to 202 as the major street, but it may have some slight improvements to traffic flow on that route as well.
Thank you. So, do we have a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion for all second. Okay. Any questions from the audience?
A cost estimate on that?
To put it in,
Yeah, is that what you're approving?
No, zero. That's how it's
It's a
put it
pay-back
down.
program.
We just have to maintain it after 5 years.
And that cost after 5 years was $750.
Roughly, it's estimated at $750.
I too was curious with Mr. Purnell. I thought the developer for the new Agway site, those hundreds of apartments were going to pay for traffic light.
Well, this project has been discussed for almost 2 years. They are most likely aware of the PennDOT.
Well, I don't think they are.
Okay.
They were going to make timing changes.
Oh, that's
They
right.
were not
Right,
going to
right.
install adaptive
Left turn.
controls.
Yep.
There's a huge difference between making manual timing changes and using an adaptive system. The adaptive system is much more efficient. So, yeah, they were making a lot of roadway improvements, but very minimal signal changes, just timing. So,
Which would allow for left-hand turns, for example, coming
right.
south onto 202 from that way. Okay, great. So we do have a motion and a second. Any other questions from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ruble. Last but not least, we come upon number 23 now, our public comment section. Anyone?
I have one public comment.
You will start with the board and we'll go to the audience.
Can
Yes.
I ask you to turn on your mic if it's an audio? Thank you.
I can do that.
Thank you.
My question is the status of the historical ordinance. I know that I wanted to comment on it, but I've been, because my wife fell and broke her leg, and has been in the hospital for now a week or two, I haven't had time to follow up on it. And I wanted to find the status of the historical ordinance.
Yeah, an ordinance was drafted and sent back to the staff, and I believe, Casey, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
We're waiting for input from the historic commission.
Right.
Is that?
That is correct. To my knowledge, Mr. Webb, did you attend that meeting as well?
I did.
Okay, I know Mr. Webb and Ms. Geiser attended the historical commission meeting where they discussed it, but I haven't seen any feedback from the
Yeah,
commission.
Jen Pryor attended that.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jen,
Jen,
yeah, and then we just received, I think it was late last week, the ordinance sent, the actual ordinance after that was drafted based on the Historic
Oh, good.
Commission's
Okay.
recommendations.
Excellent.
That probably need to redline and go back to the Historic.
Right,
Commission.
it had
But it
comments.
came at the end of the week last week in the holiday.
Yeah, it had comments and questions along the right side. Yeah, I think that was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week.
This
right before the holiday.
Thursday is the historical commission's meeting, so
Well,
can we get
Rick
it?
and I will meet with Bill tomorrow and get our comments together,
Okay.
and then we'll forward it to
Okay.
the
My
commission.
question was what the status was. I've lost touch. Okay, thank you.
How soon do you think we could have that passed after advertising?
7 a.m. It's not a zoning.
Yeah, it's not a
Do that in
zoning
December.
thing. If it's ready to go, we can
Yeah.
certainly do it in December.
We have 20-plus days till our December 18th meeting, so we can get it out.
That's got to be turned over relatively quickly to do that. Yeah.
We could do that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get together tomorrow and get it back to the commission for final
Thanks.
approval.
Any other public comment for the board members? No, okay.
Again, my name is Robert Brotchick, West Goshen Township. Mr. Chairman, at the September Board of Supervisors meeting, the constituent had asked a question about an issue. Your response was that you felt your primary duty was to do what was best for West Goshen Township. Hopefully you were referring to your constituents. At a previous meeting, an individual expressed disappointment because you hadn't responded to his complaint. You stated that you can't respond to a complaint unless there is documentation to support that complaint. At the June Board of Supervisors meeting, I continue to express a complaint that has been ongoing since 2007 about snow throwback onto my walkway that was a public safety issue. I also stated that I had pictures and video recordings that would corroborate my claim. I repeated that claim at several other meetings since then. However, this board and previous boards have totally ignored this complaint, even though I claim to have proof. Obviously, the Board of Supervisors has no intention to hold anyone accountable for allowing the continuation of a situation that endangers the public welfare. Therefore, I feel that my only alternative is to seek whatever lawful remedy is available that will hold people accountable for their failure to control the situation. So I will pursue reckless endangerment charges to be brought against several township officials. Mr. Chairman, do you think that this board ignoring a situation that endangers the public welfare is what is best for West Goshen Township and its residents?
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comments?
Abbas Barry, not this time, Chief, maybe next time. Mr. Purnell, my best wishes for your spouse's speedy recovery. Mr. Chairman, according to Sunshine Law or Sunshine Act, the minutes that the board, your township manager takes, they're the only official township record. Now, you also utilize videotaping. My question to you, sir, what is your retention policy, data retention policy with respect to videotape recording?
I would have to ask that.
It goes on YouTube. As
we
long as
have-
YouTube's in business, it'll stay there.
We also have the physical files as well.
That's true, yeah, we do.
But we don't have a retention policy currently on the video meeting.
We just follow the Pennsylvania Museum Historic Commission on any retention of any detail, any information.
I don't know, does it fall under that?
It should.
Okay. But we don't have, to answer your question, we've never passed those separate, excuse me, we've never passed a separate, it's fairly new, but we've never.
Yeah, but we follow
Okay.
HMC civil letter for everything else, so we would follow it for videotape, whatever it is. I can't quote it.
We've never taken anything down.
No, absolutely not.
No, everything's still up there.
Everything's still.
Are these information on a bit or any kind of format, either silver impregnated or any other format or electronic format, are they retained in the township? Since the gentleman is videotaping, is taxpayer funded, the equipment I'm assuming is taxpayer funded, there has to be a retention policy. How long do you hold that information? And what is your destruction policy with respect to that? I know the township has a destruction policy with respect to paper material.
We follow the Pennsylvania Museum Historic Commission retention schedule by ordinance. We adopted that decades ago, and we follow that to the letter. So whatever their requirement is for video, we will follow it. We don't destroy anything, except for the policy. And I don't see why we would get rid of video recordings. We've only been doing it for 2 years. And it's
Literally, yeah.
So
2 years exactly.
Let's say I do a FOIA request, I'd be able to obtain those records, let's say this month.
If you want to pay for reproduction, but we would probably, Mr. Sander, direct you to the YouTube because that is the exact record. We don't record before or after the gavel. So what goes on YouTube, it's unedited, it's raw footage. So we would direct them because that's, for right to know, that's a publicly accessible document without having to reproduce anything.
Correct. And if you wanted to request it in a certain format, the township's requirement is only to provide it to you in a format that it maintains it in and not to have to create or revise or change the format that it retains the record in any way.
Would I be able to review those formats or the opportunity be provided at the original format, review that? Let's say tomorrow morning.
What is the original format? What?
It's an MP4 file.
It's an MP4 file.
Sure.
I don't really care. I have those files. It's up to your discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Go ahead. This fellow chance back here that hasn't spoken. Come on up.
Sir, may I get your name?
Yeah, Chris Lawrence.
I'm sorry.
Chris Lawrence.
Oh,
There's a number of us from Roslyn, Pomona, South New Street here with some concerns of the traffic. And actually, for the first time, we've heard that there's some comprehensive plan that you have. Could you enlighten us on what that plan is and how long it's been going on and
It's
your
been
plans?
going on for months. We've obtained grants and budgeted for it. The township should have a comprehensive plan updated, I believe, in 10 years. Yeah, every 10 years, and ours was slightly out of date. So we initiated in the budget several years ago a comprehensive plan, and we are meeting tomorrow right here. So I suggest you come to hear some of the improvements. We did take a township-wide survey.
Yeah, we heard about the survey. We have actually, I don't know if all of you do, but I have a copy of it.
Sure.
I was never, I don't, when did that happen? When was the survey done?
April.
April of this year?
Yeah, because I had never seen it, so I was never asked, so I don't know.
How was that survey disseminated?
We mailed it to every address, and we had it online. We announced it at every single meeting. We sent
Yeah,
out,
because I never got it.
we sent out 6,500 of them.
We actually budgeted and mailed.
Absolutely.
I hear you. I mean, I read every piece of paper that comes in my house. And if there was a survey, I can assure you I would have filled it out.
We had 30% return rate on it, which was extraordinary for us as a municipality, so it got to a lot of people.
Usually you get like a 10% return.
I hear you. I'm just really surprised because I've been waiting for a survey to show up at my door.
Wow.
Is it next Tuesday, we're having that joint meeting
Yes.
to discuss
Yeah.
the overlay
So-
district out in that neighborhood?
And that
Ms.
notice,
Lasota is on the planning commission and on the comprehensive.
and how is that information disseminated? Like, today's Tuesday, and I just heard about it.
Well, if you look,
Monday.
the best places to look, always, is on the township website.
Okay.
Because we post that, we actually had that survey available online too, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, for almost 3 months.
And a lot of people responded. I know, I saw it, it was on our
Right.
website.
Yeah, I think
There's
60%
some
of
of
our
us that
responses
don't
were
do-
mail.
So, all the meetings and everything, you hit the calendar, you'll see it. We really do want people to participate, and we actually had a really good participation.
We had a great turnout at our workshop meeting for the
We had
company.
a workshop with the comprehensive
We
plan.
had 50 people show up.
And we actually had people from your neighborhood that did attend.
So tomorrow's meeting will be discussing the task force or the comprehensive
The
plan?
comprehensive
The
plan.
comprehensive plan.
Right.
So we gathered evidence, information from both the surveys and from, we've hired a consultant.
Yeah, you did something 2013?
2004 was the last one we did.
We did the Rosedale corridor study.
That was
back in-
before our time.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
2012.
That was
Yeah, that was a,
That had nothing to do with the comprehensive plan that we're talking about.
Okay.
In fact, we're very much so trying to look into that and react to that.
mhm.
Our very specific question is the Jones sign. The Jones Street sign on Main
Jones
Street.
Lane.
Jones Lane.
Yes. So that, in my
Impact that
opinion,
has.
was a situation where we took from Peter and we gave to Paul. And when you have a situation like that, taking from one group and giving to another, it never works out. So I look forward to trying to, crack that nut going forward. How we do that best is, please come out and participate.
Awesome.
Is that part of that comprehensive?
The comprehensive plan doesn't specifically look to that. The comprehensive plan is a global plan for the township,
Okay.
where you want the township to go. We've heard mention about sidewalk, for example.
Mhm.
That's part of the plan. We're thinking of sort of developing a sort of town center and having sidewalks, walkability for people to be able to go to our shops or go into town. There's some really exciting proposals, and we're working in conjunction with SEPTA for some enhanced stops and public transportation. So there's some interesting things that are happening, but honestly, the more people participate, the more ideas we get, the better. We did try our best. I mean, we budgeted for mailing out all
We
those
sent out
surveys.
6,600 paper surveys.
Online. I'm so sorry you didn't get that.
That is so
That's
bizarre.
disappointing, it really is.
So I guess the follow-up to the question then is, what's our next steps to dealing with this
Get
this
involved.
sign?
Come.
With this sign, specifically with this sign then, because I know your comprehensive plan isn't addressing, it's looking at the overall
Right.
view and making recommendations, but how do we deal with this specific sign?
Well, I think it's something that has to be put on the agenda, and we'll have to look at it. And it's an issue that's been going on for years.
And it's a huge impact, not only to the residents, but to, much of New Street and Rosedale as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot going on, just that sign
Yeah.
that we would like to talk,
So I know this board has been very cognizant of that whole area, and that's one of the reasons why, as Mrs. Soda so aptly mentioned, it's important for that meeting on December 4th, isn't it?
December 4th, 6 p.m.
Next Tuesday.
For that overlay, which is a totally different thing from the comprehensive plan.
So how does the overlay impact traffic?
What the overlay is, it's not necessarily directed at traffic specifically. What the overlay is drawing a line in the sand, saying basically to the university, this is it, you can't go any further. Because there's been a slow creep, it's been an unplanned creep, it's been a piecemeal creep, it's been very invasive to the residents there and their quality of life.
But that's in a use scenario, not
Yeah,
in a
it's
traffic
use
scenario.
So what we've done is come upon a zone where they could specifically build out to, and that's it. Beyond that, we have residents protected from any future development. And we thought that had to happen first. And once we can consolidate that and draw that line in the sand, have that protection, then we can do proper planning and see what we can do. Knowing that the university won't be a factor in the future going forward on that. So it's not a cure-all, but it's a step. And it's a step that we haven't been taking. We've been trying. We've been battling back and forth. We have a very cooperative president at the university, Chris Fiorentino. From the previous leadership at the university, it just wasn't as cooperative. And we're looking forward to this overlay approval. So please come, especially if you're residents there. This is directly going to
Oh,
affect.
this is our backyard.
Yeah.
We're at the stop sign.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, so there's a meeting tomorrow night.
There's a meeting tomorrow, there's a comprehensive.
That's here.
Yes, that's here.
And then the following Tuesday is another.
Is another meeting on the overlay, and the borough, the township officials, the planning commission for the borough and the planning commission for here will all be part of that meeting, and it's a public meeting, and residents are invited to learn about this overlay district that's being proposed. And it's interesting because we have two municipalities that are involved that have to come up with an agreement on one ordinance that has to be passed by the township and the one ordinance has to be passed by the borough, and they both have to be this exact same in order to contain the university.
Okay.
So it's cooperation between two municipalities, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
and new. That's awesome.
Great, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
How can we specifically address that issue of the Roslyn traffic flow? I mean, what kind of a meeting can we have to specifically,
Or I guess more important, how do we get that put on an agenda
yes,
for this?
At least for discussion. And I have to say that I am really impressed with this entire board and this presentation this evening. We kind of dropped the ball because it just became too difficult to even keep track of the meetings. They were planned and canceled, and that has nothing to do with people sitting up there now. But we moved in August, and 2 weeks later, the sign went up. So, and we had just bought that property. And we had been trying to change it for 3 years and got nowhere, and then got a part-time job and grandchildren, and now we're back. And we're saying, we've been living with this now for 6 years. Nobody's fault. And like the other night, it dawned on me that when I come out of the Parkway Shopping Center and I want to make a right-hand turn, there's a sign that says, no right-hand turn between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. And I thought, that's a compromise we could do with that Jones Street right turn. Roslyn needs some support when there's 50,000 students driving down the street. I get that. But we need support in getting our kids to extracurricular activities, to getting to doctor's appointments, to getting out of our driveway, and to being able, and just a practical thing, to go get a cup of coffee at Wawa. I should not have to wait for 200 college students on Rosedale to get to the Wawa. So it dawned on me, maybe we could put up a sign that says, no right-hand turn between 9 and 4, or 9 and 5. Weekdays. Not weekends, but weekdays. Everybody needs a break. including us. You know, and then, I mean, to be truthful, when I read the posts that were going on that store, I felt like residents are even being targeted. Because this week, the police department was giving out tickets out the wazoo to residents. The college kids aren't even here that week. So it definitely made us feel like we were being targeted by the police department too. And that wasn't a good feeling. So that's part of the reason that precipitated us coming today, is that we're obviously not talking and we need to start a conversation.
Dr. White?
Just make a comment.
Yeah, you know what, folks, I'll ask you to come up so we could,
Sorry.
sometimes you get problems here.
You're right, that's been Doug White, West Goshen Township. You're right, Roslyn and Pomona Hills have been a problem a long time, and I've known about this problem. I had a little discussion with Mayor Soda this week when the opening of Stadium Road would relieve a lot of traffic. It's not going to happen, you're right, because there's two municipalities, us and East Bradford. And if we can get...
As well as University.
Yeah.
And West End.
Yes, and West End. So
And West End.
that would help. So when that happens, everything will get better. So, but your concerns are valid. Yes, but that's why the overlay proposal is important to limit the growth. But until we get that T road open, this problem will continue, and it can only happen with some cooperation with the other townships. Thank you.
It's hard to bring everybody to the table on that, but it's something that we could work towards. My understanding is putting something on the agenda for discussion, you just contact us, contact the township manager, we can schedule a night for Justin, the gentleman I was speaking to back there.
Well, I was going to ask, can we get it definitely on an agenda, preferably somewhere near the top of the agenda, so that, because I think there are people who are very much exercised about this, especially now, Chief Gleason, we had this problem at the left turn place from Rosary on to Jones, I guess it is, down to there, yes. And we were especially unhappy that it was, after all, this is not a felony. We were hit with $184. And obviously it was an infraction of the law. I'm not arguing that, but it seemed excessive to someone. Anyway, people are exercised about it because on the next door network that has grown into a pretty voluminous number, I have been talking back and forth a great deal. I think I'll get to the point here, if we could just get it on an agenda and let it be known exactly when that meeting is going to take place, I think you would have probably a room full of people who want to. And I'm going to do my best to say, look, folks, we all have different points of view here. Let's be calm, let's be quiet, let's not get angry and yell at each other and so on, as they seem to be doing on the next door thing. And I think that some good suggestions have been made. For example, the suggestion of during the week, limited hours or whatever. Another possibility that has occurred to me is maybe you could give the residents a sticker on for the windshield.
You can't do that. They're all public streets. You can't restrict certain people to use a public road on public streets.
You can't do that?
No, sir. We all pay taxes. We all can drive on the roads no matter where. Sorry.
Okay, but there are people who have suggestions.
Well, I think the idea is to get together and come up with ideas.
Yes.
So I'd like to, but for now, we're tied up with the budget. We have been cognizant of that. And some of the overall things that we've done is trying to alleviate that situation. we could specifically look at it. Perhaps maybe we should start a task force, as you suggested before, sir, back there. I know at least 3 of us on this board have actively knocked on doors in that neighborhood. We've heard about these concerns, and we understand. So I think what has to be done is some type of global solution. And I don't think everybody's going to be happy, but if everybody's not happy, and if everybody gives a little, maybe we could come upon something that would be at least workable. And I think that actually includes the university too. As mentioned by Dr. White, I know I had discussions with your dad about that, about opening up that utility road, how that would be not the cure-all, but it would be a relief. And one of the ideas that I came up with thinking was, you know what, fine, it's your road, you don't want to give up that road, why don't you open up that road to your students so they could come in, have some type of like easy pass for your private road to come in, to park, and then to take, you know, electric buses that aren't so loud and obnoxious to the community, and go back and forth from the university stadium area. And that's not cure-all, but that would alleviate a lot of the single car traffic zipping up and down New Street, perhaps, and would have, that to me, I thought was a good idea. So we've run into some snags. You know, Dr. White, his father, you know, we would talk about that sometimes, but that's not a non-possibility. I think we should revisit that. So why don't we, you have my card, why don't we start planning? Maybe we could form a task force, because we could address this issue. Right now, we're kind of up to our necks with the budget. We'll get past that, and we could look towards this. Mr. Murphy.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. This has been an issue for many, many years. I was on the board when we addressed the situation about 6 years ago. None of the current members here were on the board at the time that it was addressed. Part of the issue was recommended a number of years ago to do a Rosedale Avenue corridor study. That stopped a number of years ago. We were able to get that going, I think it was about 6 years ago. Part of the process that we looked at was trying to fix the situation with the volume of traffic that was coming through Roslyn at the time, as other people have mentioned. There was a task force put together for that. It was very divided on what good steps would be. But that was just the first step in addressing the overall situation. It included, which was done, a study of Rosedale Avenue, study of the intersections on Rosedale Avenue with Main Street and High Street, looking at recommendations to improve the traffic at those intersections. But the number one recommendation that was made by the Gilmore study, which completed that, and I think that was done about 5 years ago, was to see what could be done to open up Stadium Drive. That was the number one recommendation from the Gilmore traffic engineers that did the study. And that was the overall goal, to relieve the traffic situation for the entire neighborhood. And yes, the problem that we recognized at the time was exacerbated during the course of the school year when the students were there. We have a lot of traffic that's coming from other parts of Chester County that come through because there's no easy way to get from 926 or to up and around Westchester. So looking for a way to get around. The difficulties with Stadium Drive essentially is that it's a state road. High Street is a state road right through there. So getting approval to get traffic changes coming up Stadium Drive involves the state as well. We were starting to make some progress in addressing the intersections. But then the borough backed out because they didn't have any money. They were supposed to contribute 1/3 by the university, 1/3 by West Goshen Township, 1/3 by the borough. The borough didn't have any money, decided they didn't want to do it, and the majority of the board, the supervisors of West Goshen at the time decided they didn't want to foot the entire bill to make the changes at New Street and Rosedale Avenue. So the process kind of ended. But getting back to the situation with Jones Lane, coming from Pomona Hills over through Roslyn. Recommendation was made by a few of the officers on the police department for the change that was in place and to try that for about a year. And if the other process was not completed yet, working with the university and making some changes, to possibly change the direction of the traffic. Right now, you can drive through Roslyn and up Jones Lane over to New Street. But part of the recommendation was at the time, well, what if we shift the traffic the other way? So you can't go up the hill, but you can come downhill. The volume of traffic, if I remember correctly, was about a 60-40 split, with about 60% coming through Roslyn going up, coming from Pomona Hills down, and about 40% going the other way. So at the time, part of the compromise was, okay, let's try this and see where we go. That may be a viable solution temporarily, but in the long term, the traffic that is coming through from Rosedale Avenue up that causes congestion on New Street, traffic that's trying to find a way from 926 to blockage there, that tries to come up New Street, get stuck, and on Rosedale Avenue, there simply is not a viable solution right now to get through. With the development that I think Toll Brothers wants to put over on Tiger Road, that's going to make the situation incredibly worse. Coming through there. So it needs a solution, and the solution is not Jones Lane. That's a tiny road. We have a big development going on in the township right now with the Jerakian track. The connector road is running between Phoenixville Pike and Pottstown Pike. It was very interesting when we had the traffic studies for that. They estimated that the volume of traffic, cut-through traffic per day on between Phoenixville Pike and Pottstown Pike would be 4,000 cars a day. Some of the studies that were done during the school year when traffic from the university was at its peak, traffic studies the police department did was about 4,000 cars a day coming through Jones Lane. So if you look at the Jerakian track and the fact that you've got traffic lights at both ends, you've got a divided road where traffic is going, you can't put a divider road, and you can't put a connector road in like that between New Street and High Street, not through a residential neighborhood. To change and have that volume of traffic coming through doesn't work in a residential neighborhood on a road that's not supposed to have more than 1,000 cars a day on. So it's a difficult situation, and the residents of Pomona Hills and Roslyn have been living with it for 40 or 50 years. We had a lot of residents here who were talking about that when we first addressed the situation, and the same issue was presented with all of them. It was never that heavy when they moved in, but over the course of time, it gets a lot worse. So I think that the task force is a good idea. One mistake that we made before was not having complete input from all the residents of Pomona Hills. But the issues were considered by the people that were on the task force, and it was split down the middle. How do we resolve the situation? What's a fair situation? And none of the solutions had zero impact on the residents of Pomona Hills and Roslyn. Any change in there has an impact, but no change in not addressing it had a cumulative effect over a number of years, and it affected everybody there anyway. During breaks, Christmas breaks, summer breaks, things like that, when you don't have the university in session, it really is not a problem through there, except for rush hour. In the morning, you have a volume of traffic that's coming up Rosedale Avenue, so there is a delay. There are a number of cars that are on New Street trying to make the right-hand turn onto Rosedale to get over to the High Street area, or they're going further south down to Pleasant Grove Road or 926. So it needs a comprehensive solution. The Gilmore study that came out studied a lot of those and found that the number one relief for the area, when you look at it as a whole, would be trying to open Stadium Drive. That has difficulties in it. There were some recommendations at some point to even having an exit from 202 right down Stadium Drive. And that would certainly make it a lot easier for people getting home over there, people coming back, but that involves a stay as well.
So would you be interested if we did form a task force to be involved in?
I have offered that in the past, and I continue to do that. But if we're going to do this, we need very balanced representation between Pomona Hills and Roslyn. We need, it has to be that way. And it's something that I'm surprised we haven't had, it hasn't been addressed in the past 3 or 4 years. My last year on the Board of Supervisors was 2015. There were efforts underway in 2014 and 2015 to get it kick-started again, but where we ran into difficulty was the funding issues for studies that needed to be done at Rosedale Avenue and New Street, Rosedale Avenue and High Street, those different intersections. We can't control what the budget that the borough has. But if we constantly refuse to take action because the other people involved don't want to spend money, the impact is greatest on our residents in Pomona Hills and Roslyn. So I think it's very important that we look at the issues, and if West Goshen needs to finance some of the changes by itself, I think that that is a fair thing to do for the residents, of that part of the township. The impact is felt greatest by our residents, not the residents in the borough, not the residents in the other townships. Pomona Hills and Roslyn sit nestled right there in between university property, university students, and cut through trying to come through other places. So I don't know if there's questions for me, but there's a couple of hands going up. I can answer a couple questions, but I really encourage let's put a task force together.
Yeah. I think we could put that on the agenda starting in the new year.
January 15th meeting.
Mr. Burnell?
I grew up in Roslyn.
I know you did.
I remember when Jones Lane was a dirt path.
Yeah, it wasn't an ordained street till the 60s, right?
Correct. So I'm very familiar with the area. I'm very familiar with the problem. And it's going to get a lot worse with the Tide Farm being developed by Toll Brothers, especially Toll Brothers, because they don't care. And that's not in our township.
As well as if something happens in Cree Building and people are coming up from that area.
The Cray Belly is going to be another problem. That's probably 2 years down the pike with the appeal process and the process. So it behooves us as West Goshen people to put the arm on the college to open this what they call Stadium Road. That really is a solution to expect that little thing of Jones Lane to handle the expected traffic. We didn't really have a problem with Jones Lane until they built South Campus. And when they put South Campus in, not even the stadium so much as the residential down there, the huge residential area that they have down there. They run a bus back and forth, make them all take the bus.
Yeah,
Don't let them have cars down there. That's cooperation the college needs to help us. And that means putting the pressure on our state representative.
I've lived there for 20 years, and over the course of 20 years, as they built the apartment complexes over on South Campus, traffic has just gotten worse and worse there, and it happens each year as this student population grows. Even weekends when people are coming to visit, the traffic that comes through, that's crazy. We had a person the other day going 50 miles an hour down Spruce Avenue, right through a stop sign, where there's a child with autism who lives right at the corner. And they just don't care. So it's a huge problem that we need to look at.
I agree.
Thank you. I think that sounds like a great idea, folks. We all seem to be saying the same thing here about forming a task force. I know after his hand was up first, I'll get to you, sir. Okay.
I just have a couple of comments.
Come on up. Okay, speak up. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I'll come up. My name is Ashley Gagne. Thank you guys so much for coming out and talking about this issue. I just have a couple of opinions because I went to college at Westchester and I was on the sustainability group at Westchester, and I think the the most affected are going to be the animals and the environment through the Gordon Natural Area. That is a gigantic reason why that Stadium Drive hasn't been opened. To open a road to alleviate traffic that, I'm sorry, but we all have to deal with. I understand where you're coming from. I live in this township too, and I was a student and had to sit in those lines every day myself. But to assume that you can open a road that runs through a natural protected area that I actually used 3 times a week to study and do my work as a student is something that I think you're going to encounter. It's something that I think that everyone needs to take into consideration. I sit in traffic all the time, but I'm not looking at paving through a forest to make my ride easier. I deal with it. I deal with it every day. Gordon Natural Area is a very important last piece of our township that needs to be preserved. And so I just want, if you are going to form a task force, and I encourage you to, because I understand the issue, I just really hope that you take that into consideration. It's something that a lot of us care about, so thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Just a hypothetical. We've heard that about the protected area there, and I understand it was actually proposed to Westchester University, the Greystone Manor, which is the serpentine ecosystem, very rare, that we were actually going to trade out. We offered that to them. This is before my time. Am I correct, Mr. Murphy?
Correct.
And we said, you know what, we understand. How about we give you this unique ecosystem, dozens of acres.
7 endangered plant species.
I mean, you know, and they were like, no, we want to put this instead. And then we said, well, what about, you know, limited impact? Some of the ideas, like the idea I mentioned to you about just the students, where we would have, actually, environmentally, it makes sense. You're limiting single-user vehicles in the area, emissions and everything, having them park in there, and then taking the buses and just saying, you know, this is just the way it's got to be to reduce traffic downtown and in the area, so that you won't have residents sitting through there, but you'll have your own students, and they would park and would go. And no. But how would you feel if you were to come to find out that there was long-term plans, I'm just saying hypothetically speaking, where the university has plans to develop that area anyway?
That would be
very interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was my understanding that that was gifted by the person, and they said that that could never be used for anything.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
That's correct. It's owned by the Commonwealth, they can do whatever they want with that property. And there was a published newspaper article from like 1977 that showed an ultimate build-out plan for the university, tearing down every single tree in the Gordon Environmental Center. So there was already been discussion of doing that back in.
Well, there's been many discussions within the university itself, but nothing's happened because there are a lot of people on the other side that aren't allowing that to happen. So I think that the conversation can't just be, we need to open Stadium Road so that can't be the only answer.
Any other public comment? I'm so sorry, sir.
I'll be brief, I promise.
Can I get your name, sir?
Jeff Cantwell, here from East Bradford Township. 2 things. The task force, I think, is a great idea, and I strongly suggest you have representatives from the surrounding neighborhoods, including East Bradford.
We always ask.
That's great.
We always ask.
You probably remember Dr. Regan from East Bradford Township.
I think he retired to Alaska.
Yes, did Alaska?
Alaska.
Well, he always said that if Stadium
Oh, I'm
Road...
sorry. I'm from East Bradford. I'm touching that. Okay, it was a Westchester University.
He was both. He was at Westchester and East Bradford.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He was a professor at the university. That's true.
Tom,
Exactly. Yeah. He said if Stadium Road were opened up, he's going to close Tideway.
Right.
So that's
going to cul-de-sac the road.
That's exactly right. He's going to cul-de-sac the road. So I just wanted, that's why I think you need representatives from surrounding.
And East Bradford did not participate in the Rosedale study. We asked repeatedly, and they
Great, I would have done it myself.
did not participate.
I had that guilt. They said on
Positively
my
said
computer. You're all up with that. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Lalonde, you mentioned that you would put the EPA settlement online. Would Would you kindly?
I will do, I don't even know if I have a copy. I'll have to get the cross under. I don't have it, so I have to get it.
Okay, at the November 1st meeting, it was requested that that be put online, and you seemed like you would be more than happy to do that
I
because
do
you
not
thought it was
have
very
a
important.
session, so I'll ask Mr. Honor with the authority.
Okay, and on-lot sewer systems, anybody on the board, are you on your own septic systems? Everyone's on public? Was this other, are you on public? Well, no, I'm just curious. I know we're raising the sewer rates by 65%, and I just wondered if those sewer rates affect everyone on the board or just a handful?
Well, you could put that out there. It's not a question and answer generally. If they don't want, if somebody doesn't want to answer that, they don't want to answer that. You put it out there. Thank you for your comment.
Okay. And is that public information, though, as far as how many on-lot sewer systems and where in the township they are?
Not that I know of, unless it's maintained as a specific record in that format, a list of people who are have on-lot service, then the township's not under any requirement to create that record.
So, all right, I just want that noted, the strongest proponent for a 65% sewer rate increase is not affected, obviously, by that increase.
And how do you come to that conclusion?
And then recording secretary, I hope for next year that this board will somehow find an employee or find a little bit of money, maybe $250 a meeting, to have someone other than the township manager be the minute taker of the official record of the township. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Any other public comment? Okay, well, I entertain a motion to adjourn. I think I heard one from Ms. Cornell, Mr. Nicholson, from Mr. Beacom. All those in favor? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.